name of God, who is most merciful and gracious, I am Zubair Khan and you are watching my vlog. This is called absolute justice. This is the topic for today's program. Tahir Chaudhry is a well-renowned journalist of Germany. In this program, you will watch one of his videos, which to me is a true reflection of ensuring absolute justice. What will be the end result of this ongoing story of legendary Karim Khan? No one knows. As you all know that the Karim Khan is the chief prosecutor of International Criminal Court. But the way facts and analysis have been presented by Tahir Chaudhry will be remembered in this era. With heartiest thanks to Mr. Tahir Chaudhry, now please watch his courageous and beautiful video.
A few days ago, something happened that made me want to make this video. I had an off-the-record meeting in The Hague. That means the things discussed there weren't meant for the public. But now, with the leaked and revealed insider reports, I can show you what's really going on behind the scenes. And it's just unbelievable. Spoiler alert, someone took his job seriously, showed courage, spoke up against injustice, and now his life is on the line. But more on that later. Where do I even start? Israel and the US are furious.
What a disgrace.
Boy, is the world turned upside down.
The damage has been done.
Rogue.
Wrong-headed.
This must be stopped.
But this is disgusting.
For the civilized Israel, with its most moral army in the world, it's a PR nightmare.
Basically, it's the first democracy that is being taken to the dock when it is doing exactly what democracy should be doing in an exemplary way. I think it will endanger all other democracies. Israel may be first, you're next, Britain is next, others are next too.
The US needs to show who's the boss right now.
America should punish the ICC and put Karim Khan back in his place. And if the ICC is allowed to threaten Israel's leaders, we know that America will be next.
And the new boogeyman? It's Mr. Khan, who's accused of equating a terrorist organization with a democratic state.
Mr. Khan creates a twisted and false moral equivalence.
We don't think there's an equivalence between what Israel did and what Hamas did.
There should be no equivalence between Israel and Hamas.
There has never been, and there can never be, any equivalence.
What this Mr. Khan did is so outrageous that everyone is called to speak out.
Israel expects the leaders of the free world to stand firmly against the ICC outrageous assault on Israel's inherent right of self-defense.
Make sure the ICC understands where you stand. Oppose the prosecutor's decision and declare that even if warrants are issued, you do not intend to enforce them.
The sense of an equivalency between the democratically elected leaders of Israel and the bloodthirsty terrorists that lead up Hamas.
There is no moral equivalence.
At der er en samtidighed.
To draw moral equivalence.
Jest rzeczą zupełnie oczywistą, że mamy do czynienia z nieakceptowalnym takim symetryzmem.
Die Vergleichbarkeit weise ich und weist die Bundesregierung entschieden zurück.
Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu takes it even a step further.
Mr. Khan takes his place among the great anti-Semites in modern times.
Mr. Khan's response?
Nobody is above the law. No people by dint of birth or passport, religion, nationality or the colour of their skin have a get-out-of-jail-free card, have a free pass to say, well, the law doesn't apply to us.
When they say Mr. Khan, they are referring to Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, or ICC. The court is based in The Hague, in the Netherlands, and handles the world's gravest crimes. Think of the ICC as a kind of referee who steps in when basic rules of coexistence are broken. It's important not to confuse the International Criminal Court with the International Court of Justice, which is also in The Hague. The International Court of Justice deals with disputes between states and is the main judicial organ of the United Nations. The ICC, on the other hand, goes after individuals and focuses on the most serious crimes like genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Karim Khan is like the world's Attorney General, deciding which cases get brought before the court. As chief prosecutor, he checks if there's enough evidence to bring charges. But there is one problem.
the power to arrest is not with the office. States have the power to arrest. I don't have an army, I don't have special forces, I don't have my own police force. I have my investigators, I have my analysts, and I have my lawyers and other colleagues.
This means the ICC relies on the cooperation of states that recognize and support the court to actually carry out warrants. Until earlier this year, I was one of the ICC's open critics. In the past, I saw the court as a tool of Western powers to control third world countries. I was disappointed by Khan's decision in December 2021 to essentially drop investigations into US war crimes in Afghanistan. And we didn't hear much about the alleged war crimes by Israel that his predecessor had started to investigate. Khan explained that he wanted to focus on cases with a good chance of conviction, rather than prioritizing cases that were unlikely to succeed. I was also disappointed by how quickly Khan acted on investigations against Russia in the Ukraine conflict. Millions of euros flowed in from NATO countries in Western and Eastern Europe to speed up the investigation. And that highlights another issue with the ICC. It relies on voluntary contributions from member states, often not enough for thorough, independent investigations. This dependency means powerful states can cut funding or provide selective support, pressuring the ICC and influencing which case are pursued.
Of course, the prosecutor of the ICC does not, whatever affection and regard I may have for my dear friends in Ukraine, has no special affinity to any particular country. We're not a party to any hostilities. This event is not hosted by Ukraine to get weapons. It is not hosted by Ukraine to gain financial assistance. It is hosted by Ukraine to plant ever more firmly the flag of justice on the fertile soil of this land.
The accusations against Putin were largely based on a report from the Yale Human Rights Lab, a research organization partly funded by the US State Department. Compared to most ICC cases, the warrant for Putin was issued in record time, only a few weeks between Khan's request and the warrant. Whether Khan was right or got played by manipulated evidence, I can't say for sure. What's clear is that the US responded positively to the warrant for Putin, despite not even recognizing the court.
I think it's justified, but the question is not recognized internationally by us either. But I think it makes a very strong point.
Do they even listen to themselves? Not one Western government official has been prosecuted by the ICC, even though the worst war crimes of the 21st century came from their actions. In the past, I hadn't looked too deeply into Karim Khan as a person and thought of him as a Western puppet. Then, something completely unexpected happened in May of this year.
Today, I'm filing applications for warrants of arrest before Pretrial Chamber 1 of the International Criminal Court in the situation in the State of Palestine. These applications are the outcome of independent investigations conducted by my office under the direction of the two principal trial lawyers standing behind me today.
The following statement sent shockwaves to the Western world.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population.
And just to clarify, these investigations weren't only about Israel, but also about Hamas, which sees itself as a resistance movement against Israeli occupation, but is labeled a terrorist organization by 41 states.
What are the charges?
The charges are extermination, murder, taking of hostages, rape and sexual assault in detention, So these are the key crimes that are alleged to have been committed by these three individuals.
The prosecutor's arrest warrant was for three top Hamas leaders: Mohammed Deif, the military chief of Hamas, and the Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar.
I think any of us that are parents or have children, any of us that have families, any of us that are alive, any of us that have love of God or love of humanity in our heart, could not have helped feel their hearts chill.
Both Israel and Hamas could have defended themselves in court, but for Hamas that's no longer possible because Israel has since killed all three top commanders. From the start, Karim Khan emphasized his neutrality, and Khan's message to Israel was clear.
Israel has every right and indeed an obligation to get hostages back, but you must do so by complying with the law. The fact that Hamas fighters need water doesn't justify denying water from all the civilian population of Gaza. But in addition to everything else, there's an affirmative obligation as an occupying power that Israel is to make sure water, medicines, anesthetics, insulin goes to the people that need it. If tanks can go in, why can't those tanks and those soldiers guard aid convoys?
After the request for arrest warrants, Netanyahu was furious. He needed to do damage control fast and protect his image, especially with the American public. He gave numerous interviews on American TV accusing Prosecutor Khan of anti-Semitic motives, suggesting Khan was acting on behalf of someone. On whose behalf? That he left open.
This guy is out to demonize Israel. He's doing a hit job. He's creating a false symmetry between the democratically elected leaders of Israel and the terrorist chieftains. That's like saying after 9/11, well, I'm issuing arrest warrants for George Bush, but also for Bin Laden. Or after in World War II, well, I'm issuing arrest warrants for FDR, but also for Hitler. It's a hit job.
In July 2024, Netanyahu even addressed the US Congress, sharply criticizing Prosecutor Khan and his court.
Don't be fooled when the blood libels against the Jewish state come from people who wear fancy silk robes and speak in lofty tones about law and justice. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has shamefully accused Israel of deliberately starving the people of Gaza. This is utter, complete nonsense. It's a complete fabrication. The ICC prosecutor accuses Israel of deliberately targeting civilians. What in God's green earth is he talking about?
Everywhere Netanyahu spoke, he repeated one line echoed by the US.
The ICC has no jurisdiction over Israel, and Mr. Khan's actions will not stop us from waging our just war against Hamas.
So what do the US and Israel mean when they emphasize that the ICC has no jurisdiction? The ICC operates based on the Rome Statute, a treaty established in 1998 and in effect since 2002. It sets the rules and procedures for the court and defines the crimes it may prosecute. The idea for the statute and the court dates back to the Nuremberg trials after World War II, when international tribunals were set up to prosecute Nazi war crimes.
Is law for power or is law for people? Is it children or is it interests? Is it for right or is it for wrong? Is it going to be never again? Is it going to be time and time again?
Never again hasn't applied equally to all since then. The fact of the matter is, Western powers are actively supporting mass killing and displacement in Palestine through diplomatic, financial, and military means. We conclude, there is a book of rules and a referee. The only problem is that not everyone wants to play by the rules. Take the US, for example. They've acted as the policemen of the world since World War II, but don't even recognize the ICC. The statute has been signed and ratified by 124 countries worldwide, committing them to recognize and support ICC decisions. Most recently, Palestine joined in January 2015, followed by El Salvador in March 2016.
25 years ago, countries worldwide adopted the Rome Statute, a treaty aiming to bring to justice perpetrators of the most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole, and to help prevent such crimes.
In 1998, a conference in Rome brought together 160 states and 800 NGOs. Tensions were high, negotiations nearly collapsing as the US pushed for significant compromises on trial procedures, evidence collection, and prosecution, especially for US soldiers and agents. In the final vote, 120 countries supported the statute, while 7 opposed it: the United States of America, Israel, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, Qatar, and China. Days after the conference, the US actively opposed the court. They signed the statute at the last minute to retain some influence over its shaping. But 2 years later, under President George W. Bush, the US took an unprecedented diplomatic step, officially withdrawing its signature.
President Clinton signed this treaty, but when he signed it, he said it should not be submitted to the Senate, and therefore never has been, and I don't intend to submit it either, because it, as the United States works to bring peace around the world, our diplomats and or soldiers could be dragged into this court, and that's very troubling to me.
The US stance on the ICC has remained unchanged under Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden.
As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority.
We don't recognize the jurisdiction of ICC the way it's being exercised.
Russia withdrew its signature in late 2016, one day after an ICC report labeled Russia's annexation of Crimea as an ongoing international armed conflict with Ukraine. Russia claimed the ICC had failed its promise and viewed the court as inefficient and politically biased. At that time, Karim Khan was not yet leading ICC prosecutions. That role belonged to Fatou Bensouda, a former justice minister from Gambia, who was elected chief prosecutor in 2012. At the beginning of her tenure, she was relatively reserved. This brought a harsh criticism. Critics accuse her of yielding to political pressure and lacking consistency. Bensouda was primarily accused of a focus on African countries, though she always maintained
there are misinformations out there about the ICC, that ICC is a Western court targeting Africa. How wrong can that be? There is no African bias, and there will never be an African bias.
But critical questions persisted.
The own president of the ICC, she says it's a problem for your credibility that you just focused on Africa.
I think it is correct to say that most of our cases, or all of our cases at the moment, are in Africa.
The helpless, the dispossessed, the abused die when people like you remain silent, don't they? You know this to be true. All around the world, people are dying because important people are staying silent.
Tim?
How can you stay silent when you know that human rights abuses are being committed and you have the chance to speak out? Because what's the worst that can happen to you for speaking out?
My court is not a court of human rights. I must also remain independent. I must remain impartial.
What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? Staying silent or talking out?
I have been talking out where I can talk out.
Months after this interview, Chief Prosecutor Bensouda released a preliminary report stating there were reasonable grounds to believe that in addition to Afghan government troops and the Taliban, US forces also committed war crimes. Here's how the Obama administration's State Department responded to the Afghanistan report.
We do not believe that an ICC examination or investigation with respect to the actions of US personnel in relation to the situation in Afghanistan is warranted or appropriate.
When you say that it's a bad thing or a negative thing for African countries to want to leave because they think it's unfair, and then give this as your reasoning for why it's inappropriate for the ICC to look into these allegations, do you not see how that opens the door to
Well, I would say, as we
people
said,
saying that there's a double standard here?
I understand your point, but we hold ourselves accountable more than, I wouldn't say more than any other country, but we hold ourselves to the highest possible standard.
The hypocrisy couldn't be more obvious. Bensouda received a green light to proceed with the Afghanistan investigation in March 2020. The Trump administration hit back.
Today we take the next step because the ICC continues to target Americans, sadly. Pursuant to Executive Order 13928, the United States will designate ICC Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda.
President Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency, which imposed asset freezes and travel bans on ICC officials and their families. Instead of backing down, Bensouda pushed forward in December 2019. She requested permission to proceed with investigations into alleged Israeli war crimes in the Palestinian territories, including Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. In February 2021, she got the green light. And this was Netanyahu's response.
The decision of the International Court to open an investigation against Israel today for war crimes is absurd. It's undiluted anti-Semitism and the height of hypocrisy.
A week after Karim Khan, Bensouda's successor, filed arrest warrants requests for Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant, The Guardian revealed that Bensouda and her family had been hacked, monitored, and threatened by Mossad and other Israeli intelligence agencies during her term. The Mossad director at the time, Yossi Cohen, even threatened Bensouda directly, demanding that she drop the investigations into alleged war crimes immediately.
The Israelis clearly misjudged Fatou Bensouda. One person is quoted as saying they thought of her as, basically merely black and African, so who cares, as they put it. But she's a tough woman, and she resisted, these threats to her family, a sting operation against her husband, and she didn't have to act at that point because the court authorized the investigation to go forward in February 2021, near the end of Bensouda's term in June 2021. So she could have just sat on it and let Karim Khan, her successor, take over. She didn't. She actually opened the investigation a month later.
In June 2021, after 9 years as ICC chief prosecutor, Bensouda ended her term. Her successor became Karim Khan. After 9 years as ICC chief prosecutor, Bensouda ended her term. Her successor became Karim Khan.
I started doing quite a few speeches and speech competitions at school, and I went more and more towards the law. And also I was very much inspired by not my biological grandfather, but in fact the person that adopted me as his grandson, Sir Muhammad Zafullah Khan. And he was the first foreign minister of Pakistan, and he was also the first Asian president of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. And he was also the president of the United Nations General Assembly. So he was a very eminent jurist, a very eminent lawyer.
Born in Edinburgh, with British Pakistani roots, Karim Khan attended the independent Silkwood School in West Yorkshire, UK, and later studied law at King's College London, one of the world's top universities. This was likely his entry point into elite international networks. Khan built a name for himself as a human rights lawyer in war crimes trials. He appeared in international tribunals for cases in Yugoslavia, Rwanda, and Sierra Leone, among others. He represented Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, son of Muammar Gaddafi, and Kenyan President William Ruto. Khan became known for his sharp mind, charisma, and eloquence.
But John, it's far too easy to get off a plane with an ICC badge and say, okay, we've got a mandate, we're going to investigate, and actually not pause with humility that all of us need, that I need as a defense counsel. I need that humility, otherwise I'm not effective. To say, I'm a foreigner here in somebody else's land. Let me try to understand the basics, the culture, the history, before I just jump to conclusions. You can't do it in line with CNN or BBC or a departure date for a former prosecutor. It requires that humility, that that realization that we're fallible to get it right.
In 2018, 3 years before his election as chief prosecutor, Khan gave a speech before a Muslim Pan-African organization, speaking candidly.
We see, for example, at the International Criminal Court, that there is murmurings, in fact more than murmurings, there was even hostility and a vibrant dialogue about the fairness of the court that was focusing principally upon African states. How do we move from international treaties and words, utterances, packaged differently, to a world in which peace and brotherhood have some substance, that they are real, not just ideals?
It's a bit of a mystery, some might say a miracle, that Karim Khan was chosen as chief prosecutor in 2021 despite these views. Already in 2020, the ICC member states began searching for a successor to Fatou Bensouda. An expert committee reviewed the proposed candidates and recommended 4 individuals. However, as no agreement was reached, the candidate list was expanded to include 5 more names, including Karim Khan. Some African states favored Khan as he was well known there from his work in African nations and as a defense attorney in international tribunals. Without a consensus, the decision went to a secret ballot. In February 2021, Karim Khan won in the second round, securing a majority but not a unanimous vote.
I, Karim Asad Ahmed Khan, solemnly undertake that I will perform my duties and exercise my powers as prosecutor of the International Criminal Court honorably, faithfully, impartially, and conscientiously. We are involved in a body of law that is owned by humanity. It is not of the West or of the East, it's not of the global North or of the South. It belongs to each and every one of us.
The big question after his inauguration was, how independent can a man like Khan really be, embedded in an international legal system heavily influenced by Western powers? In May 2024, Karim Khan answered that question, if not for the ICC, then for himself.
Do children know what is a passport? Do children and babies know what is nationality? Do they know even religion? Unless we can see past these accoutrements that are part of a world that we wish was civilized and proclaim sometimes it is becoming ever more civilized, and see the humanity that should drive the law, we were going to be condemned.
What Khan has experienced since this unexpected decision is unimaginable.
Of course, I've had some elected leaders speak to me and be very blunt. This court is built for Africa and for thugs like Putin, was what one senior leader told me. We don't view it like that.
US senators have even publicly warned Khan.
Recently, when word came out that this may be happening at some point, US senators and US congresspeople, mostly Republicans, wrote you a letter signed by Senator Tom Cotton, Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and others. This is the quote: "Target Israel and we will target you. If you move forward with the measures indicated in the report, we will move to end all American support for the ICC, sanction your employees and associates, and bar you and your families from the United States. You have been warned." Is that a threat?
I think that's the plain meaning of it in English.
Were you directly threatened by Western leaders, by leaders from the United States, from Europe? Can you expand on what kind of harassment and threats you faced?
No, I don't choose to mention that at the moment.
And like his predecessor, he's under intense surveillance and threats from Israeli intelligence agencies.
I mean, when he issued that notice that any effort to intimidate or retaliate against prosecutorial staff will be an obstruction of justice, in essence, I thought he was referring to Republican senators who had threatened severe sanctions if Israeli officials are charged. But he clearly also had in mind what the Israeli Mossad had been doing, mainly to his predecessor.
We're not going to be swayed by the different types of threats, some of which are public and some maybe are not.
3 weeks after the Israeli bombing of Gaza began, Karim Khan visited the Rafah border crossing. In December, he visited both the West Bank and southern Israel, meeting with Palestinian officials as well as Israeli survivors of the October 7 attacks and the families of the deceased.
But one thing, this prosecutor, this rogue prosecutor, didn't even bother to come here. He said he'd come here to check the facts. He didn't check the facts.
Why didn't Khan meet Netanyahu? According to insiders, they wanted to host Khan for a grand dinner, but he reportedly refused, saying he wouldn't participate in a lavish meal while children were starving on the other side. During this time, Israeli intelligence closely monitored every move of Khan, aiming to understand what materials the Palestinians were giving him, as a source told the investigative team from Israel's Plus 972 magazine and The Guardian. According to an insider, Netanyahu was obsessed with intercepting information about the case. The source added, Khan is the most boring man to gather intelligence about in the world, because he's as straight as a ruler.
אז אנחנו בשבע זירות כרגע, רק כדי להבין. אנחנו מול חיזבאללה, קודם כל מול חמאס, מול חיזבאללה, מול החות'ים, מול המיליציות בעיראק, בסוריה, מול איראן, מול יהודה ושומרון ומול ה-ICC. הכל ביחד.
Let's summarize. On May 20th, 2024, Chief Prosecutor Khan submitted a request for arrest warrants to the ICC Pre-Trial Chamber 1. Now it's up to 3 judges to review the allegations and decide whether to issue the warrants. On August 23rd, Khan urged the judges to make a quick decision on the arrest warrants, warning that delays would compromise the victims' rights. On September 20th, Israel formally challenged the ICC's jurisdiction and legitimacy regarding the requested warrants. These objections have, of course, delayed the decision. Germany, my home country, also filed a legal objection in the form of a legal opinion, likely out of concern that if the warrant request were approved, Germany, as an ICC member state, would be obliged to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Imagine that. On October 25th, the ICC announced that one of the 3 judges deciding on the arrest warrant, Romanian judge Julia Motoc, has stepped down, citing health issues. Slovenian judge Betty Holler has taken her place. This change may delay the warrant decision, as the new judge of course needs time to review this case. Now it gets crazy. Almost at the same time, accusations of sexual misconduct were made against Chief Prosecutor Khan. Following the initial media reports, Khan firmly denied the allegations, stating there was absolutely no truth to them. The accusations were amplified by an account called ICC Leaks on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter. The profile was created in October 2024. Interestingly, among the first followers of this new account were Yair Netanyahu, the eldest son of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who, according to Haaretz, uses social media to spread lies, defamation, and slander against anyone he considers enemies of his father's camp. Other early followers included US Ambassador to Israel David Milstein and pro-Israel commentator Douglas Murray. The tweets, mostly retweeted by verified accounts, followed a consistent pattern. Here's a tweet from the aforementioned Murray, and here's a tweet from Israeli Foreign Ministry diplomat Albert Ratson and pro-Israel journalist David Atherton. And there are many more. It wasn't particularly hard to frame Karim Khan as a perpetrator, given that his brother Imran Ahmad Khan was convicted in the UK in April 2022 for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old boy and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Of course, Karim Khan can't be held responsible for his brother's actions. The Wall Street Journal's editorial team, known for its pro-Israel stance, published 2 opinion pieces on this case. The central theme of the first article, let me read it. What accounted for the sudden change, of course? A new theory is that Mr. Khan was trying to save his job after being confronted with sexual harassment allegations a few weeks earlier. Israel bashing is a reliable way to divert attention and pressure. This narrative of the warrant as a distraction from the allegations was intentionally spread, starting with ICC leaks, then promoted by the Wall Street Journal and widely shared on social media. Here is Caroline Gluck, journalist and right-wing politician from the Jewish news syndicate.
16 days after she filed her complaint, he said that he was going to arrest Netanyahu. Okay, I think that that's fairly clear. The timing here is crazy.
Netanyahu was already aware of the chief prosecutor's plans beforehand, thanks to Israeli intelligence monitoring him. Netanyahu was also aware that Khan was under tremendous pressure from the United States, according to an intelligence source familiar with the intercepted messages. Even earlier Reuters reports contradict the new theory narrative. Since at least March 2024, Khan or members of his team had been briefing the governments of the US, UK, and some other permanent members of the UN Security Council about the possibility of filing charges against Israeli and Hamas leaders. This triggered behind-the-scenes diplomatic efforts to persuade the ICC to abandon this course, as one report put it.
I think continuation of threats is commonplace, of course, not even against myself or my staff or the institution, but even against family members. But we're not new to this. It's very selfish or narrow-minded for me to be concerned about myself when so many others have nothing to cling to except this belief or hope over experience that the law can be meaningful in their own lives.
The allegations of sexual misconduct clearly seem like a targeted smear campaign against Karim Khan. The timing of the accusations are not coincidental. The media has also been covering it with suspicious speed and intensity. So, who can Khan still trust? Are there informants in his circle? People passing information along? Coincidental. The media has also been covering it with suspicious speed and intensity. So, who can Khan still trust? Are there informants in his circle? People passing information along? Perhaps even intelligence agencies pulling strings in the background? Should we be worried that this is just the beginning? Sadly, the ICC has limited resources to protect Khan. Do they want to set an example? A warning to anyone who might dare pursue similar investigations? Karim Khan's safety is at risk. Share this video, comment on it, spread the word. Let's bring attention to this case and ensure the public can act as a safeguard for Khan.
As I said, for me, I'm fortunate that he's bigger than a particular moment. You're a custodian of something bigger than yourself, which is justice, and you have some fear of God, that you try your best, that at that moment when you leave, you can feel you've done your best. There is this cry raised from so many parts of the global south and from the global north that does every human life matter equally? Are the institutions created fit for purpose? Are we able to deal with people that are being attacked? And are we acting with such integrity, with such courage that we would act if they were our own, God forbid, our own family members?
Everybody must feel they have a duty, not only a right, a duty to speak up and speak out and act as friends of humanity, because otherwise, by sitting on our seats and eating our cereals and watching things as a spectator, as the movie of life goes forward, we are failing in our fundamental obligation.